Hello and welcome to this tutorial on some innovative ways to use Newsela like a pro. If you've been using Newsela to assign articles and quizzes to your students, then you know just how engaging and simple it is to use. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you some new ways to use Newsela to teach reading strategies that maybe you haven't explored yet and hopefully give you some tips for getting started right away. If you aren't familiar with Newsela, now's your chance to get your feet wet. It's a news website with engaging current events articles for students on topics including science, money, law, health, arts, sports, war and peace, and opinion. New articles are added every day. What's unique and exciting about Newsela is that the articles can be leveled, meaning you can change the Lexile level with the click of a button. Each article is presented in 4 to 5 different Lexile scores ranging from 3rd grade up through the max of 12th grade. Each article also includes a 4-question multiple choice quiz in which each question is aligned to a Common Core reading standard. The website can monitor and track student progress on a particular standard or just for general growth. Here's a sample article and you can see the different Lexile scores along the right-hand side. Students can also click the Write button to respond to a prompt, which we'll discuss later in this tutorial, or Quiz to take the 4-question quiz. For starters, here are some pro tips to keep in mind. When you choose an article for your class to read, it's best to add it to the binder and assign it digitally to your class. Telling them to go find the article based on the title won't work because the article title changes with each Lexile level change. Secondly, I've had students ask me why articles in the higher Lexile scores have a lower word count. This is actually a really great observation and a teaching moment for them. The higher the Lexile score, the fewer vocabulary words will be defined in context. Additionally, with a higher vocabulary, the author needs fewer words to make the same point. So there's a huge benefit to having a powerful lexicon and a strong reading level. So step 1, after you've created your account and all of your students have joined your digital class, is to select an article to assign. As you can imagine, there is literally something for every class on Newsela. For social studies, you could use articles to practice developing supported opinions and conducting a debate, and for investigating and presenting on current events. For science, you can follow along with the current hot topics such as robotics and climate change, and find just about any article that ties directly into your curriculum. Math is interesting for following along with finance and economy, and there's even a text set called Math in the Real World. For English language arts, you can find articles that connect to a particular theme you might be studying, such as perseverance. You can conduct research, and you can engage in a nonfiction genre study. There are also tons of articles on health, such as the Zika virus, GMOs, and the obesity epidemic. Newsela follows the sports world very closely, and there are also articles on arts and world languages and culture. There's literally something for every subject. A word of caution. One thing I would not recommend is using Newsela exclusively for the 4-question quizzes that accompany each article. I've worked with students while they're taking quizzes, and sometimes I can't even figure out the answers. The wording of the questions is very difficult, and we're often torn between 2 right answers. My concern is that when students repeatedly receive a 25% or a 50%, they begin to own this false sense of failure and give up, or begin to resent Newsela. I believe that we can write better questions that are more effective and better aligned to what we're teaching in our own classrooms. If you want to use the quizzes as a simple tool for keeping track of who is and who is not reading the article, I have a lot of very simple, quick ways in this tutorial to accomplish that same goal without using the quizzes. So let's take a look at some reading strategies you can use to get creative and personalize your Newsela curriculum. They will progress from simple to more complex throughout the next 10 slides or so. To begin with, annotating or marking up the text is very simple for both you as the teacher and for your students. You simply need to highlight a piece of text, as I have done in the circle on the right, and you'll get a pop-up that invites you to write something or to highlight that text in one of 4 colors. You can ask students to highlight pros and cons, key ideas, anything else you might be targeting. Students can add notes in the margins for questions they might have, vocabulary you're targeting in your curriculum, or any personal or academic connections they make while reading. Before they even begin to read, you could spark a student's thinking by giving them a specific purpose for their reading. When assigning the article, you can enter simple instructions or a writing prompt, and I'll show you how to do that on the following slide. But here are some examples of prompts that maybe you could use. Pay attention to and record 5 facts about, write a summary, create a T-chart comparing things, and maybe look for some solutions to the main problem. So here's how you would do that. Here's what the screen would look like when you're assigning an article with a prompt. You can ask the students to respond to your prompt on a separate sheet of paper to turn into you, or to write their response right there in Newsela and share it with you. So on the left, here would be the response that they could write in your notebook. Create a T-chart listing the pros and cons of self-driving cars. And on the right, while reading, pay attention to the pros and cons of self-driving cars and highlight pros in blue and cons in pink. To hit the Common Core State Standard RI.2 for reading informational texts, you can assign a prompt that addresses the main ideas of the article. Some examples could include what would be another title for this article? What's this particular subsection about? If you could set this article to music, what would be an appropriate song choice? I've had really great discussions about this next bullet point. Is the picture or graphic an accurate representation of this article? Or describe an alternate picture that you might use for this article, and list 5 keywords or 5 key concepts from this article. These are all very simple, quick things to do. If you have a particularly challenging concept or challenging article, you might want to scaffold your students' reading experience by creating a guided text reading and embedding your teacher-created questions throughout the article, not just one prompt at the beginning. I wouldn't go too crazy with these questions, however, and try to keep it to about 1 per subsection or 5 total per article. Otherwise, we might lose student focus. These can be text-dependent questions, which are questions that force the student to look back into the text for the answer, or simple comprehension questions or checks, which I'll show you on the next 2 screens. Here's an example of a text-dependent question. Self-driving cars are safe and reliable. Agree or disagree? Highlight 1 piece of evidence in blue to defend your choice. And here's an example of a comprehension check. Does Sweeney approve or disapprove of the new FDA regulations? The goal is to get students to pause and be metacognitive about how well they're actually understanding what they are reading. Another great reading comprehension task involves exploring and reflecting on nonfiction as a genre. Some questions you might ask could include, is this article informative or argumentative? Is this article balanced or biased? Which subsection is the most important or the least important, and why? Why might the author have included that particular anecdote? How might you divide this article into subsections, and what would you name them? So that applies only at the max level. At the max level, they don't subdivide the article into subsections anymore, so that could be a really interesting organizational task for our higher level students. Also, for our science and social studies teachers, you have some Common Core state standards to hit with literacy embedded into your curriculum. So here are some sample questions I've created based on your specific Common Core state standards. What could this word mean based on the clues in the sentence? How is this article organized? Chronological, cause-effect, compare-contrast, argument, some other organizational motif. What new information do the graphics give you that isn't found in the text? I've seen that question quite a bit on standardized tests. Highlight facts and opinions in 2 different colors. For our English language arts teachers, you should consider how you can use nonfiction Newsela articles to support a literary text or novel or concept you're exploring in your classroom. For example, last year I taught a unit on the outsiders to seventh graders, and I chose a few articles and assigned them to students and had them read about outsiders in our current society. I asked the students to write about how the article connected to our novel. You could consider asking questions like, what would your main character think about this topic? Or what does this article show us about human nature, to get at those universal themes? And finally, a great feature that Newsela has to offer are text sets. These are sets of 8 or more articles that fall under a particular heading or theme, like global geography or the giver. Each text set includes an essential question or big idea to reveal how the articles or concepts are connected, so that work's already done for you. You might consider using a text set to launch a new unit through a flipped classroom scenario, or by having students jigsaw the articles and create a concept map to show how the articles interconnect. You can also create your own text sets if you're up for that challenge. Here's an example of a text set called Black History: Connecting Current Events to Past. To finally wrap up this tutorial, let's talk about assessing student work. When you go into your class binder and you click on the assignment, all of the student submissions will be listed, the same way as if you were doing the 4-question quiz in the same place. You can click on each one and a screen similar to this will pop up, and you can decide to give student responses a score of a check, check plus, or check minus, or you could also post a reply with some narrative feedback. It's honestly that simple. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and I hope it gave you a few new ideas or inspiration to use Newsela like a pro to help our students increase their reading comprehension and their confidence in reading.